How y'all doing? How y'all doing? Hey man, it's Antoine Smalls on Financial Blueprint, man. I'm so glad that you guys can tap in with me today as we continue pouring into you guys when it comes to all things finance, as well as y'all, stock market, real estate, and things like that. But today we are going to continue with this government shutdown as we have reached week number 3 of the government shutdown, and it's getting a little tricky now, right? We believed that the government shutdown will last a little while, but until you see it in real time, until you can experience it in real time, it's hard to put into words, that feeling from a federal employee as well as military members, the uncertainty of a government shutdown. In this situation, as we've seen the Democrat and Republican parties not being able to come to an agreement when it comes to the funding bill, not being able to come to a continued resolution, what is a CR agreement to keep the government open, so that they can negotiate further. Both sides are not budging. So how is this moving forward? We have seen some changes when it comes to our President Donald Trump releasing funds for our military members, which is amazing. So that our military members, as of tomorrow, will get paid for their services. We've also seen some reduction in force memos that we will discuss today. So quickly today, we're going to go over the government shutdown as we get into day 14 and week number 3, as well as our president paying our military members, and then last but not least, our RIFT and federal employees receiving RIF notices and emails regarding their jobs possibly being cut. So let's go into our first topic, which is our week 3 overall outlook of the government. And let's take a look at what they're saying currently right now.
Down being felt across the country as we reach 2 full weeks since the Senate failed to pass a funding bill. Another vote is scheduled for tonight, and Jay O'Brien is on Capitol Hill with more on what we can expect. Jay, good morning.
Yeah, Whit, good morning. Exactly 2 weeks into this government shutdown and no end in sight. Even top Republicans like Speaker of the House Mike Johnson warning that the government could be in for one of the longest shutdowns in its history. The record is 35 days set during the first Trump administration. And right now, more than 750,000 furloughed federal workers, including essential staff like TSA agents and air traffic controllers, feeling the pain, getting their last paycheck until the government reopens. More than 4,000 federal employees, according to the White House, have already been fired, including critical special education staff, and sources tell ABC News dozens of mental health and substance abuse workers at the Department of Health and Human Services. President Trump saying over the weekend he's using the shutdown to go after what he calls, quote, Democrat-sponsored programs. Up here on Capitol Hill, Democrats digging in, saying that they're fighting for health care, Republicans refusing to negotiate while the government is shut down. The Senate is set to return tonight, and they're poised to take up their 8th vote, their 8th attempt to fund the government, and that is expected to fail yet again.
And Jay, while the government is shut down, the U.S. is still moving forward with plans to bail out Argentina. What more do we know about that?
Yeah, with a highly unusual move, $20 billion of a lifeline to Argentina's struggling financial system. The Treasury Secretary saying it's meant to stabilize a key U.S. ally in South America. But Democrats up here on the Hill pouncing, accusing the president of sending money abroad, but cutting services here at home, like Medicaid and food assistance. Argentina's president set to meet with President Trump at the White House today.
So as you can see that the government has been shut down for 14 days, right? We are on day 14 currently right now, and it doesn't look like there is any movement in any direction for the funding bill to be passed and the two parties to agree on the shutdown, right? So right now we know that as we've reported in the past that the funding bill is required of 60 votes. And currently right now there are 55 at the table agreeing to it. And the Republicans need 5 more Democrats to agree to the funding bill for it to be passed. And that currently at the moment has not happened. Right. So there is a stalemate situation happening right now. And we don't know as federal employees, as military members for reserve or active duty, guard, etc., when the government will be, the shutdown will be lifted, and that is causing a lot of issues, right? So this week is the last check for federal workers. Last week could have been a check depending on what your pay schedule is, but this week is the last check for federal civilian workers that were basically got paid up until September the 30th due to their pay period. They received a partial check this week. So after tomorrow, when it comes to these checks for federal, civilian employees, this is going to be the last one, right, for the month of October. Right. So financially, there is a lot of issues when it comes to things like that, right? There's a lot of problems when people got to pay their bills, they got to pay their rent, they got to do what they got to do to make sure their families are situated. So there's a lot of uncertainty at the moment, and that's causing a lot of problems, right? But one thing President Trump did do, which I will say is an amazing thing, is he found a way to find the funds to pay military members for the United States military soldiers on active duty, right? So for a while, we talked about how there was a possibility that our military soldiers, our Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard personnel overseas, as well as within the United States on active duty, would not get paid due to the federal shutdown, right? But that is something that has changed over the weekend. President Trump found, and he gave Secretary of War Hegseth a order to find the funds to pay military members, right? And we're going to touch into that right now, and let's go into how the military has gotten paid or is getting paid this week due to our president.
The president is leaving for the Middle East. It's the third week of a government shutdown here at home. He says he's found the money to pay our troops on the 15th of the month. How's he going to do it?
Yeah, well, Rich, this had been a point of concern for lawmakers and for members of the administration because the last day to process payments for the military is tomorrow, but the next vote for the short-term funding bill is not until Tuesday. But the president now says in a Truth Social post, he's directed Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to use all available funds to get troops paid on October 15th. The president's saying they have identified funds to do this, and Secretary Hegseth will use them to pay the troops. This morning, Vice President J.D. Vance told Maria Bartiromo again on Sunday Morning Futures where those funds could come from.
Some of it will come from tightening the belts in other areas, but Maria, this is exactly right. A lot of this will come from incoming revenues to the Internal Revenue Service, tariff revenue, but also income tax revenue that is going to make it possible for us to pay our troops.
Politico also reports the Pentagon is tapping into research and development funds to pay the troops to the tune of $8 billion. Rich, back to you.
Madeline Rivera live for us at the White House. Maddie, thank you. For more on this, let's bring in New Jersey Congressman Jeff Van Drew. He's also a member of the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, thanks for joining us this afternoon. The White House moving some money around.
As always.
Yeah, thank you. And, the White House moving some money around to try to make sure the troops are paid. It seems like there's an awful lot that's gone into this. This isn't something that appears that the White House and the administration can do a number of times, right? I mean, there aren't too many paychecks that you can just search the couch cushions and find.
Well, we got to get this one done. I mean, it angers me. It disgusts me that the Democrats don't care about this, that they are willing for our troops not to be paid and to hurt their families and hurt our troops who will put their life on the line for us. So we're going to get this done. There's up to $8 billion of unencumbered funds there that we can use. We'll use that. We'll use some other revenues that come in. We're going to be okay for now. But here's the real deal as well. Quite frankly, we need to move forward, in my opinion, because the Democrats are not. Schumer is in a box. If he does the right thing and votes for this continuing resolution, which is business as usual, he has voted for this exact thing many times before, little mini budget for 7 weeks. There's no Trump stuff in it. There is no congressional Republican stuff in there. None of us have anything in there. It's just a straightforward thing that he's done many, many times. But they've become so radicalized that now Schumer has been told he will be punished and he will lose his leadership position if he cooperates at all. So they just want to burn the House down. I believe It is time for the Senate Republican leadership and Leader Thune to forget the filibuster, get the 51 votes plus whatever you need. You're not going to make the 60, and get this done, and let's get back to work. The one thing to wrap this up that we can't do is try to negotiate health care while we're doing this little CR, because that would take as long as anything else, and it would be weeks and weeks, and who knows where it would lead. We need to do the work on health care. We need to help our people with health care, but not for a CR. It's going to just hurt us.
Do you think that Leader Thune should move forward, blow up the CR on just this? Or is this something of a broader thing that we need to get rid of the filibuster going forward in the Senate?
This is 2025. Times have changed. We're fighting for the heart and soul of America. In my opinion, it's time, because I'm going to tell you why. I understand the process of the filibuster. I understand why it was there. Times have changed. And guess what? God help us if the Democrats ever get in control. They're going to break through the filibuster. They're not going to care. They're going to do what they want. We need to get this done. It's unfair to our troops. It's unfair to other people turning in our country to have this shutdown. And we need to get forward so we can really work in the process to help America, make it strong, and to really get health care done. See, I'm somebody that believes with health care, we do need to do something with the ACA, and we do need to do something with tax credits. We can't let people's premiums double or go way up. But the way to negotiate it is not during this short-term CR, because it would take weeks anyhow. The way to negotiate it is in the bigger picture. Right now, we have to get ourselves 7 weeks so we can hash this all out. I think it's time, definitely, for the filibuster to be done. Time to move on. We've got work to do.
So as you can see, the President Trump, found a way to move money around. And let's talk about money for a second when it comes to the government. Basically, everything is all about pots of money, right? So they have money in different pots allocated to different things, right? So what they did was they found a way to get, money from, R&D, from the IRS, from income taxes, from different avenues to be able to get funds, bring them together. They knew they needed $8 billion to be able to pay the military soldiers as of October the 15th, to ensure that their families is being taken care of, right? So they found the funds for this pay period for the military, right? This doesn't mean that the military will get paid after the 15th. That doesn't mean that on the 1st of November, it's a guarantee if the government shutdown continues that they'll have another $8 billion. But from, this week and this paycheck, our military personnel, our armies, Marines, Air Force, and Navy personnel, Space Force, and Coast Guard will have their paychecks, in their bank accounts, right? So that is a blessing. And I will say, that's a great job by our president, as well as our Secretary of War, Head Chef, to ensure that the funds are available so that our military members across the world, as well as within the United States, are getting paid as of tomorrow, right? So what we've seen over the weekend is a possible reduction in force, right? What is a rift is a reduction in force from our president that and OPM and HUD basically telling federal employees of different agencies that there is a possible rift coming over the next week or so, right? So some of these agencies that have been affected by a reduction in force is the Health of Human Services Department, Department of Homeland Security, Treasury Department, Educational Department, Environmental Protection Agency, our Energy Department, and our Commerce Department. So that's 7 agencies within our federal government that is seeing rifts across their agencies it was thousands of employees. It was at least 50,000 employees, I believe, that was possibly getting rift notices, right? So this is something that is very important, that we understand what RIF is and what RIF means. And so let's go really quick and give you a quick overview of what a rift is, right? So in the federal government, a rift basically means a reduction in force, which is the formal process for separating or reassigning employees due to budget cuts, lack of work, or agency reorganization, right? Unlike a disciplinary firing, a rift is not a punishment. It is based on objective criteria such as tenure, veteran preference, length of service, and performance. So if you receive a rift notice, it doesn't mean that you perform negatively in like a performance evaluation. It means that the agency as a whole is going through budget cuts. The government as a whole is going through budget cuts, and the agency wants to cut certain positions based on their criteria, based on their budget, and based on what they want moving forward when it comes to efficiency in that agency. So our President Trump talked about how if we were to go into a government shutdown, he would then direct the budget, lead to enforce or to provide recommendations for RIF cuts within our federal government. And as of this past weekend, we did start to see some RIF memos that would then affect those 7 agencies. There could definitely be more to come. So let's take a quick look at RIF and what they're saying about the reduction in force that just began over our past weekend.
Schumer, he would tell you that, look, we just want Republicans.
But we start here this afternoon. The shutdown now in its 10th day, and the White House is beginning mass firings of federal workers. In a post on social media, Office of Management and Budget Director Russ Vought writes this: RIFs, which stands for Reduction in Force, have now begun. This, I want to note, is separate from the thousands of workers who've already been furloughed and not permanently laid off. CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian joins me with more on this. Nicole, the Trump administration now looking to sort of put pressure on Democrats with these firings. Explain how they're doing that.
Well, look, we saw ahead of the shutdown that the White House Office of Management and Budget had put out a memo basically directing agencies to find potential reductions in force, or RIFs as they are called, in the event that a shutdown occur. And so, there has been this thought on the part of Democrats that this is just a threat, but now it looks like the Office of Management and Budget is making good on that threat in terms of the director saying today that these RIFs have begun. Furthermore, with an OMB official telling CBS News that not only have they begun, but they are also substantial. Now, I did a short time ago catch up with Wisconsin Senator Tammy Baldwin, who happens to still be here in Washington. She said she was not provided with any specific details on what agencies might be impacted by this or the size of this, but she did express concern, although she said, this is something that the Trump administration has been doing for some time now. So in her view, she told me she just sees this as yet another scare tactic.
So, Nicole, as for what's ahead here, the House and Senate, we know, will both be out over the holiday weekend. So why aren't they planning to stay and hold some more votes to try to keep the government open?
Well, look, I mean, it's a good question, and one where, at least if you talk to the speaker, he would tell you that, look, the House has already done its work. We passed this clean extension of funding. The ball is in the Senate's court. If you talk to Leader John Thune, he would tell you, well, we're just waiting on a few more Senate Democrats to cross over to support government funding. So that continues to be the line from Republican leaders. However, I asked Senator Thune if he feels like there's any end in sight to this situation. Take a listen.
We know that our president uses everything from a negotiation standpoint, right? This is a business tactic. This is definitely a negotiation tactic to try to get, his influence over through the Senate and the House of the House, so that the government can, stop being shut down, right? So he's going to utilize the tactics that he sees fit when it comes to negotiation, as well as trying to influence others to sign and agree to the funding bill to get the government open. So the RIF is a possible negotiation tactic. The only issue is that you messing with people's lives, and this is, thousands of personnel that possibly will not have a job, right? So it's one thing to be furloughed. It's one thing to be told that you got to wait until the government, comes back online for you to go back to work, and you'll be able to receive some type of back pay for your furlough time. It's a whole nother thing for you to say that, oh, you're furloughed, but it's a possibility that I might send you a text or you might get an email and you won't be able to come back to that job, right? So currently right now, there's a whole bunch of things going on when it comes to the RIF and some of these agencies. And the prolonged shutdown is a big concern when it comes to how long the shutdown will continue. Right now, we are in day 14. So we just take a look at what an analyst is saying regarding our shutdown and how it could extend a lot further than just a couple weeks.
More on the impact of the shutdown, Libby Cantrill, PIMCO, head of U.S. Public Policy. We could go down the list of things to talk about. I guess the latest I saw was that President Trump said some of these agencies are not coming back. If Democrats take a note of the possible negative effects on them from keeping it closed?
Yeah, I mean, I think that just in general, both sides think that they have a winning hand here, and our expectation is that the government may stay shut down at least until November. We may actually go into Thanksgiving with a government shutdown. Republicans have, rightly said that they have passed a funding bill that historically Democrats have supported, a clean funding bill at current levels. Democrats, however, obviously have been sort of in the wilderness, have had a hard time coalescing around an issue, have had a hard time sort of resonating with their base. And they believe this is a political winner by drawing attention to the expiring ACA subsidies.
When Congressman Lawler walked up to Leader Jeffries and said, here's a 1-year extension of exactly what you want. Will you sign on to that and reopen the government? And he didn't say yes. Could they do that? Was that an actual offer to Leader Jim?
I mean, in my view, is whatever happens in the Senate is the most important indicator. I think that the House is a little perfunctory right now. Obviously, the House is gone. Yeah. And the fact that the House is likely to be gone at least until next week shows you that this government shutdown is going to be much more long-lasting
the House,
than people expected.
Why? The Senate could vote on it today if they got five more Democrats.
Yeah, and I think what Leader Thune has said is that may not be such a simple vote for Republicans in the Senate. I think this is the issue, is that this is not just about government funding. This is about Obamacare and about this extension of these expiring subsidies. And many Republicans historically have not supported either. And so this is not something that is going to be super straightforward for the Republican leaders in order to get passed. So this is why, again, kind of all signs are pointing to, from a market's perspective, all signs are pointing to a much more prolonged shutdown than what people expected. And that obviously has then nonlinear economic impacts the longer this lasts.
So the Senate soon might not be able to promise that we'll do something with the subsidies, because he might not have the support with.
Yes, and this needs, and this needs 60 votes, both the funding of the government, but also the ACA subsidies. And so this is, again, this is not going to be straightforward. We've been, sort of warning our clients into the, before even the fall and the summer, that should the government shut down, there was no sort of natural catalyst for it to reopen. And that is proving correct. Now, again, I think the market is sort of shrugging this off. This is not a big deal. But, our view is that the longer this occurs, the more that you have 1.5 million people not getting paid.
Well, the military
CPI data collections not happening. I mean, this starts to actually have an economic.
Should Trump have found a way to the president have found a way to pay the military, or if they weren't getting paid, would that put more pressure on Democrats to come to the table?
I think he just made the calculus that it's better to not play politics with
the military.
With the military, probably a good political choice as well. But yeah, I think that's probably what the calculus.
So, as we've reported in the past, that the longer the government shutdown continues to go, the more the federal funding for different programs ends, right? So the longer that the government shutdown continues, the WIC, the SNAP program, we talked about Federal Housing Authority, the FHA loans, and different agencies are, national parks, museums, things like that. They get, they don't get the funding for them to continue to, operate on a day-to-day basis. So this is a possible really, really big deal when it comes to not just furloughed employees, not knowing when the government is coming back online, but the longer the shutdown continues, you do not have CPI reports, PPI reports, jobless reports when it comes to where we are when it comes to unemployment, and a whole bunch of reports that then drive the sentiment of the stock market, that helps the Federal Reserve make decisions when it comes to lowering interest rates. How that then impacts the economy when it comes to spending is we're about to be into holiday spending. So we know companies like Amazon, they're hiring 250,000 employees for their seasonal, work when it comes to, buying things. But if retail is being affected negatively because people are not getting paid, then that impacts the economy as a whole. Right. So there are different layers here that then impacts a little bit of everything. Right. And if the economy is impacted and we get negative, a possible Federal Reserve that doesn't look like they're going to forecast federal interest rate cuts, then that then impacts mortgages and loans, and then ultimately the stock market. So the dominoes will continue to fall if the government shutdown continues longer than, I would say, another 2 weeks. Right. Once we get into November, we starting to get really into some hard times with federal employees not getting paid, multiple checks, possibly military members not getting paid. And then we have the fallout when it comes to CPI, PPI, Federal Reserve. Meeting is at the end of October, which is the 28th, 29th of October. There's our next Federal Reserve meeting. They're supposed to be lowering interest rates again. But if this government shutdown continues and they don't get their reports to show the economy is moving in a positive direction, they might not lower interest rates, which then impacts the stock market.
I think there's some questions about, can he actually reappropriate some of this tariff money to pay for this food, supplemental nutrition program? I think there's, maybe some questions about that. Again, is anyone going to litigate that? You can't just
take longer to litigate it than hopefully it'll take the government to reopen.
Well, yes, I know, and we're not trying to be Chicken Little here, but again, they're just, the political incentives are such that, both sides are quite dug in, and that's pointing to, again, a much longer shutdown.
Okay, so let's talk about that. The assumption that the government was going to reopen is one that we've all been victim to, that we've all kind of played along with.
Yeah.
You saw things otherwise. The assumption that something would get done with the healthcare vouchers was also something that people are making. You think that's not the case? Because those two things are both pretty big headwinds.
I think any sort of resolution to this is going to require some sort of compromise on healthcare. It's just a question of how long it takes to get there. And maybe it is just a 1-year extension. Again, I would sort of discount what the folks in the House are saying. I think that all of the action is going to be in the Senate. And the Senate is back in session. The House is not back in session. So again, it's not to say that this is completely out of touch or, out of reach here. But again, it seems like it's going to take
Andrew,
to actually get it.
When is that No Kings rally that's coming? Is it?
I don't have it on my calendar.
It's not.
I'm not sure when that's happening.
I believe I know. I think it's Sunday.
Is it Sunday?
And then I think is it
getting ready
this weekend?
Yeah, exactly. No, I was kidding. That was funny though, right? Kind of funny.
Not funny.
But again, I think
is there something to it that Schumer and others don't want those people coming into town if they've caved? And they want, because you said
yes. Yes.
What do you mean?
You know better than I do.
No, I don't. So this is this is a softball.
Totally.
You said they're in the wilderness and they're waiting for these left crazies to come in and to be able to say we're standing.
Those
tough.
are your words, not mine. I think
you already said that they're in the wilderness and it's all political.
Well,
I'm trying to be nice.
think that look, there is still obviously a lot of debate within the Democratic Party about the loss in November and what was the catalyst last November. This is the one kind of issue that voters really care about. If you look at the sort of the top issues that voters actually vote on, healthcare is always in the top 3. So they are sort of making the political calculus that even though it's inconvenient for the government to shut down, and again, I think as a markets practitioner, we're just worried about these sort of nonlinear effects, both in terms of data collection, in terms of consumption behavior. Also, you're already having some headwinds to the economy going into the end of this year.
It's not good to have all those videos of the same Democrats talking about they would never, if Republicans shut down the government for this, it's the worst. They're the worst human beings on the planet for what they're doing to the government. No one's going to fix healthcare in the next week.
In 3 weeks. Yeah, but
you need to get the government open, and then I'm sorry. Then Republicans are in charge. Then you got to work with the other party. I'm sorry.
And Joe, as you know,
it's a big mean world out there.
On how things are, not how they should be. I mean, I think that this is going to be is intractable, and as a result, pointing to a longer shutdown.
So, if it continues to be what it's looking like currently right now, then we are in for a very, very long government shutdown. The last government shutdown we've had, which was 7 years ago, was 35 days. Right? We are in day 14. And the House is not even back in session yet. The Senate is. But it is looking like the two parties cannot come to any agreement when it comes to even a CR to get the government moving again. But on healthcare specifically, and subsidies, right? So we have discussed how we have federal workers receiving their last paychecks, a partial paycheck for the end of the month of September. There is no other paychecks coming for these 850 approximate 1,000 employees that have been furloughed, right? We have discussed how RIF is now starting to be a possibility. And we have 7 government agencies that have received notices of RIF, reduction in force when it comes to their employees, right? So some civilian employees have been furloughed. Some possibly are receiving RIF notices, meaning that they no longer have a job anymore within the government. We did find out that our president found a way to find some money for our military personnel as of this paycheck, which is the 15th of October, which is tomorrow, which is a blessing, right? But there is no guarantee that there's going to be a paycheck on the 1st of November, right? If the government continues to be shut down over the next 2 weeks. And then lastly, we talked about how long it's possibly going to take for this shutdown to be lifted due to both sides not being able to come to an agreement, right? So all of these things affects money. It affects your financial possible blueprint when it comes to if you're a federal employee, if you are someone that is a part of some of these government agencies, if you are someone that is a contractor for the government, then gets impacted by the fact that there's no funding. If you are a part of federal programs that impacts your job, there's so many different variables at play here that affect so many people. So, I encourage you guys to stay tuned with the channel and stay tuned with the current news when it comes to the government shutdown and how that affects you. I encourage you guys to get a, gig work, get a second, third job, to, finance your lifestyle over the next, couple of weeks, depending on how long this shutdown continues. And I encourage you guys to invest if you can. The stock market did take a little dip this past Friday, and then also on Monday. Today it did. On Friday, and then Monday it went back up, but then today it dropped a little bit back down. This is a good opportunity to buy into the stock market. Please tap in with me to Stock Market Live, which will be Thursday this week at 3 p.m. Standard Eastern Standard Time, as we continue to talk about all things stocks, all things investing, and pour into you when it comes to your financial blueprint, right? So we will continue to randomly put out these videos when it comes to this government shutdown. We will continue to give you all the information when it comes to that. Tap into the new playlist, which is Wealth, Riches, and Money, as we continue to get to episode number 3, which will be tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as we go into our new topic for the 3rd episode. And we continue to just pour into the channel, pour into the content, pour into you. Man, it's Antoine Small's Financial Blueprint. I'm out. I love y'all. Continue to do the things that's best for you and your future. Continue to get better every day. Read and invest your money as much as you possibly can. I love you all. Appreciate y'all. I'm out. Peace.